So, welcome everybody to another art clinic online. We're thrilled to have you. And we want to thank you all for supporting us by showing up. And also thank the Maryland State Arts Council and our kind donors among the audience. You know who you are, and the Glen Echo Park for being our fiscal sponsor in a way that whatever you donate goes 100% of it goes to the ACO. We're very lucky that way. We have partnered with art organizations like the MAA, an upcoming Rockville Art League as well. And we just want to bring awareness to the huge arts talent that's in our area, the District, Maryland, and Virginia. So stay tuned for our future offerings. Today we have wonderful artists, and I'll let them speak in a moment. But in 2 weeks, join us for Michiko, hyper-realist Japanese artist who has shown all over the world, and it should be fun to have her. So without further ado, I'll transfer over to Nikki, who is going to introduce herself, and Erin Raedeke. Take it away. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nikki Santiago, and this is not about me, so I'm going to introduce Erin. So as you will note from her website, if you've been there, if you haven't, I'll give you a quick overview. Erin received her BFA in painting from Indiana University in Bloomington in 2000, and in 2009, she was awarded an MFA from American University. In addition to Indiana and American, she also studied at the Maryland Institute College of Art with artist Mark Carnes for a bit. And I've known Erin for a while, and I feel like that was kind of a turning point for her in her work. Erin has an impressive exhibition record. She's exhibited widely, both nationally and internationally. She's even had a museum show, so yay. All right, but she was even included, ready for this? I'm so excited for her. She was even included in the BP Portrait Award at the National Gallery in London. Big deal, right? In 2006, so major honor to be sure. Since 2013, she's been teaching, leading workshops, and giving lectures about her work across the country and abroad. She even has some upcoming workshops. Go online, check them out. She's been a visiting critic at Mount Gretna School of Art and a guest artist at numerous universities and colleges. These include Washington Studio School, College of William and Mary, Dulwich Art Group, and Black Pond Studio. Of course, you can find, like I said, all this stuff on her website, but I've known Erin for almost 30 years, so I'm going to give you a few facts that aren't on her website, the spicy details. Spicy detail number one, she has a wicked good knowledge of math. I mean, that blows my mind. And probably the most extensive knowledge of art history of any other artist that I know. Another fun fact is Erin either has more hours in her day than the rest of us, or she's super prolific. I'm leaning towards the latter. And beyond all of these things, she may just be the most gracious, kind, and humble person I've ever met. So without further ado, please help me welcome Erin Raedeke.
Well, thank you, Nikki. That was quite a introduction. So we'll see if all that's true, right? So why don't I just go ahead? I've gathered some images from way back in undergrad to now, and some from that time at MICA studying with Mark Carnes, which I agree with Nikki, it was kind of a turning point. But yeah, let me get the my screen up. So just bear with me for a minute. Okay. So I called this, I just put interior, exterior. That's what I called it. So not that it needs to have a title, but I thought that would kind of give us a, and somehow I made it reflect at the bottom. I don't know how I did that, but I did. So, but I'm not very good at computer designing and stuff like that. So anyway, okay, I call this interior exterior because I will talk a lot about, oops, hold on just a second, both kind of this internal world and external world. And growing up, I won't get into it, but I had quite a traumatic childhood. And so I was really observations always played a big role in my life. whether it's through observing conversations or people's actions and things, and kind of taking notes like in journals and things, and just there's a lot of gaslighting happening. So just in order to stay sane, I kind of had to keep track of my surroundings, conversations, relationships, and things like that. And so I went to IU, Indiana University, and one of my very first painting classes, it was all done from observation. And I kind of found my way in there, and I thought, this is it. This is a physical manifestation of how I look at the world. So, but instead of like writing down in words, I'm writing down in color. So every space, every object, every form can be translated to a color and a shape and put down on the canvas. And so here's something physical that I can rely on, and it won't disappear, it won't leave me. And so so anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell what how I kind of got into painting. And it was also I remember I was standing in the classroom on the 3rd floor at IU, and I remember thinking, here's a language, a visual language that I can learn and speak to all of these kind of events and experiences that I've had and relationships that I don't have the words for to speak about. And maybe I can also get it around my family a little bit, because everything was so hush hush. So anyway, okay, back to this painting. This painting was done in 2002, 2003. And I started it at the end of my first year in grad school, and wrapped it up the following year. And I started with this because I feel like there's a lot of elements that I've continued to kind of come out of this one painting, and it was kind of a major painting for me. It's about 6 foot by 4 or 5 foot. But why I also started off with this one, because it does have a bit of the window looking out, so a bit of the outside, but then kind of these still lifes kind of translated to be these kind of internal worlds of mine. So so anyway, this goes back to my first year in the BFA, which was 1998. And I'll try to go through these kind of quickly. I have a lot of slides, but I was kind of trying to speak to this idea of, on the surface, I might feel all put together, and, I'm getting good grades, I'm polite, I'm nice, I'm all this stuff. But inside there was a lot of turmoil. And so I was kind of playing around with this idea, and how can I communicate that through the still life? And thinking, okay, so maybe some objects are overturned. This tablecloth is getting ready to fall over, and also the red check tablecloth appears over and over again. But anyway, but then even adding like this orange picture, is like teetering on the edge of the table? Would that create some sort of tension within the viewer? It's almost to the side of the canvas too. Is it going to fit in the canvas? Is it not? We have one tumped over here. So these are some things I'm thinking about. And so here is it again, another painting I did, and these are about 3 or 4 foot. This is probably about 3 foot by 2 foot or something, or 2 foot by 3 foot. But again, one side is order, the other side is chaos. One side are cool colors, the other side are warm colors. And so these are just things I was thinking about. And so also I came across, I'm always still interested in kind of the overlooked, because I feel like even in relationships, it's, the big events like birthdays and marriages and everything, it's easy to be like, remember and congratulate and all this stuff, but it's the little things that speak, I guess, volumes, I feel. And so it's the overlooked things, a little glance that you get, or the little kind of hug that you get, that can mean so much more than just a birthday card that's signed and no message in or whatever. So so anyway, I was looking at these daffodils that I had that had kind of were past their prime. And then I had these onions, I remember, in my apartment, and obviously I didn't use them. So I was like, let me bring them in at the studio. And I studied with Eve Mansdorf. And here's another little, as a side note, what I'll do is sometimes when I'm stuck in the studio, I remember once Eve said, all your paintings are usually the primary colors. What happens if you do a secondary color painting? So I kind of arranged this around orange, purple, and green. And I've done that since too, whenever I'm stuck. But in part, these are slides that were converted to images. So just turn your head a little bit. It's a little crooked. But again, this one's kind of around the primary colors, again, maybe more scarlet than red. But this was a big one for me. I would do 2 views of the same still life often. And I didn't include the large view of this, but this is a little close up. And it was new for me. If you notice, there's a split here. And so you'll see that in a lot of my paintings early on. So we kind of have the lights and the darks, and there is some overlap, but then also things like there's, a blocked horizon line, but yet you can't really get over, there's not really like the air, the sky, is kind of blocked. And then we have the scarlet here to this kind of orange scarlet here. I kind of think it almost is like vertical almost or diagonal bookends or something, kind of creating some pressure or something. So these are just things I'm thinking about. And let's see. Okay. Oops, hold on. So now fast forward ahead. So I graduated in 2000 and took a year off and moved back home and painted. And I met my husband in 1999, so our last year at IU. And Nikki approved and actually helped set us up. So anyway, but we were living apart, and the thing 5 hours apart, which was so hard. And we knew wherever I would get into grad school in Texas, where we would move. Excuse me, I'm getting a cold. But so anyway, for Christmas, I decided to paint him a portrait. And I've always been struck by this Jan van Eyck Arnold Feeney wedding portrait. I'm sure all of you have seen it, but all the symbolism in it, this, we have the husband on the left side, facing the world, kind of the window with the world, the woman facing the domestic, and the mirror in the back. And so there's all these things that, I was thinking about. And so this is before we were engaged, and this is an awful slide. And anyway, this is the painting I did. I set it up in still life form. So John would be the bowling pin, and I would be this red pitcher. And so little things like the nutty bars, we both liked those things, and Swedish fish. So I'm like putting all these things in here. And then I'm also thinking, and this is just the ways I get into paintings too, are these thoughts. Like I used to not call myself a narrative painter, but I think I'm kind of underlying a lot of this is our narratives. But John had gone, this is a Sargent painting of a woman in Capri, I believe. And he had gone to Italy with Nikki and kind of put in some good, just tried to, I guess, get on her good side, right? And then this is a postcard or image, I think it's another Sargent, but it's in England. And I was over in England that summer. And so, and we'll notice the windows on this side, I was the one that was going to be determining where we were going to move. So anyway, so that's something that kind of, it was a way into the painting, and speaking to art history too. So anyway, some of these I've never shown. So, and again, these are from slides. So in 2001, about 3 weeks before September 11th happened, John and I moved out we weren't married yet, but John and I moved out to Washington, D.C. And it was a really hard time. I think American University, Stanley Lewis was there at the time, but I wasn't really ready for grad school. I think I just needed a ticket out of Indiana. And so I got there, and if you notice, things are very stark and very kind of rigid. This is a painting I worked on almost for the whole year. It's, I think, 35 by 32 or 32 by 35, however the dimensions are meant to be set. So, but there was something about this painting. Again, you see the split. And this is kind of the chaotic. This is not. This is a striped fabric. This is very rigid, and you have to stay in your place. And as another side note, I come from a family of accountants. My dad's a CPA, my sister's a CPA, my brother's a CPA and tax attorney, and my mom studied accounting. So she stayed home with us mostly, but then she went back to school for accounting. So I'm the middle child that moved away, and I'm a painter. So, but I never could figure out how to kind of stay within that script. And I think that's another, what these paintings are about, is kind of whether I adhere to the script or wanting out of it. We all get scripts kind of placed on us, whether we want to or not, by family, friends, society, whatever. So I remember Graham Nixon was a visiting artist, and he's at the New York Studio School, I think still, or maybe he's retired, but he's a fabulous painter too. But he suggested I do another viewpoint of these. And so here's the other viewpoint. This is 24 by 24. And I actually think there's much more of a freshness in this one. But this is like a 1 or 2 shot. And then, this is also the still life. And I don't know if Nikki's even ever seen this painting. I had John pose for me, and I never do figures, hardly ever. And I just do self-portraits. So anyway, this is kind of the scene, but things are still, wonky. I'm not the best at drawing, but I just trick people into it. So going back to this, we have the still life again, and slowly I was taking away objects. And so this was what was kind of left. And then kind of in the belly of the drawer are actually some objects that I even paint now. There was like a dead bird in there. I always called it a dead bird, and various other things. So what's next? Okay. So this is spring of 2002. It's spring semester of my first year. I was getting ready to get married, and I mean, as Nikki knows, it was such a hard time. Really, I was having a mental breakdown. And so everything was in flux, and I felt like there were right and wrongs in paintings. I don't know if any of you all have ever felt that. I thought there was a right color and a wrong color, and a right way to draw, a wrong way to draw, and I was afraid of getting caught and being called out. And so a lot of just rigidity and fear and almost terror in painting at times. But little things I was thinking about, which not that anybody would notice, but I always loved pink roses. I'm not a big rose fan, but I like pink roses because when I paint my self-portrait, there's a lot of pinks and greens in my skin tone, and I always like that combination. And so the roses kind of play off that. But when I started this, I remember I put a horizontal here and a vertical here, kind of like a crucifix almost. This rose is hanging down, pressing on this one. It's another one hanging down. It's just like they're kind of struggling to raise up, but yet there's this pressure, this just downward pressure. So, and this is a real small one, but this is another one I did. And thinking about things that conflict, you have the orange and the mint. And has any of y'all ever had orange juice or eaten an orange and then go to taste something else, especially a mint? It tastes probably like when Nikki said she ate paint. It tastes probably just about like that. It's a really awful feeling. And so, but if you do it in the right order, if you have the mint and then maybe the orange is fine. So, but here's a red and white cloth again. I was experimenting how far I can put this, kind of just flat pattern. How far can I touch the edge, the canvas? So just kind of wanting that feeling of almost claustrophobic too, if I can convey that to the viewer. So here's another one at that time, which it's really quite different than what I do now. But again, grays, I was trying to find grays. I was trying to get, I don't know if I can't get closer, but this picture was I painted it a lot in undergrad, and it came to kind of symbolize some family members that I had. And so they began to be kind of characters. But again, also there's some grapes here and a white spoon, like a white plastic spoon. So thinking about, the things that get thrown away as well in this paper towel. So 2002 happened and I got married, and then we decided to, my husband John was doing letterpress printing in DC at this local, the Written Word. I don't know if anybody remembers that on DuPont Circle, but they were like, what do you think about moving to West Virginia? We'll move the production site to Berkeley Springs, and you can, Erin, you can paint full time, and maybe even get a house. And so I was not ready to go back to grad school, and I took leave of absence, and I'm thinking I'll never return there, and because I wasn't happy with the program either. But so we moved to Martinsburg, West Virginia, bought a house for $82,000 with a 2-car garage, all brick garage, all brick 3-bedroom house. And so I painted, and this one was a fun one to do because I remember thinking, well, I was driving home. I think I was in DC for something. I was driving home, and I remember thinking, what if I painted a McDonald's hamburger? And so this is when I really kind of began to think outside the box. And I was remembering back to this memory I had as a 5-year-old. And I won't bore you with that memory, but it centered around a hamburger at McDonald's. And so, and it was kind of a memory of being shamed and all of these things. And so the thought behind this is we have the half-eaten hamburger and Masaccio's expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, right? And so, so this hamburger becomes like the apple, and and I called it expulsion because that's what it felt. Am I being expelled from the family? Whether it's by moving away, by being a painter, by all sorts of things, by marrying a Lutheran. I grew up Catholic and I married a Lutheran, and that was a big deal. And so anyway, but then other things I'm thinking in this painting, these are pink roses again, and they're in this cup. So, and these are just things that go through my mind, not that the viewer would get, but there should be a drink in this cup so I can wash down the burger, right? The flower should be in the flower pot, right? Why is there a doily on the TV tray? The TV trays like just meant to be like a TV dinner or something, a chicken pot pie, not like this nice, no one used doilies now, but back then, you would have a nice dinner on a dining room table or something. Then we had this yardstick that can be used for measurement. And so, so anyway, these are just some of the thoughts that get me through the painting. And then an empty cupcake wrapper, which actually there's one in that big, the first one that I showed, there's a cupcake wrapper in that one as well. And so another pink roses, I clipped these from our neighbor's yard without them looking. And so thoughts behind this. This is, if anybody knows anything about letterpress printing, there's this hat show print in Nashville, Tennessee. And they do really they used to do concert posters and all this cool stuff. So this is a postcard from one. And I have this little mannequin figure kind of thinking, oh, it's looking at this figure. But then I have these flowers that are in another glass. And then I have this, when you buy perennials or annuals in like the nursery in the spring, they come in these black little containers, but obviously that's not what roses come in. So maybe there's some confusion. There's things that bind, rubber bands, a twist tie, or constrict. That's what I was kind of thinking with the tie there, or the twine, whatever it is. But also, if you all can kind of take a little mental note, the color is so subdued. I was so terrified of using color. And I actually meant to, there's another painting that I've done of this fabric. It's that Mary Mecco fabric that is quite a bit brighter, but I forgot to put it in. But you'll see how the color changes. Okay, this is a really bad, I'll get through this. This is a bad image. But I started doing interiors, and I was studying with Mark Carnes at Micah. And at the time, and he said some really things that felt so prolific to me. One being, or not prolific, profound. That's the word I want, profound. One was, he said, paint the light. Construct your painting by like the pattern of the light, paint the light. Then he also said something, or with the landscape, he said, paint your experience of the place. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it muggy? Is it crowded? Is it open? Like these kind of things, think about when you're painting. And then he also told me too once, because I used to, like in the other one, everything was so constricted value-wise, but he said, Erin, he noticed that when I was painting, this has always stuck with me. He said, you put down a general color in hopes that you go back to even a better color. Why not try to nail the color from the beginning? And then if you go back, you make that nailed color that you did even better, rather than just taking like a okay color and making it better. Why don't you make something that's great and make that even greater? So if I explained that right, I don't know. But so anyway, going back, this is their dining room. So that was the night. And hold on. This is the daytime. So same view, same water bottle, cake stand. I think the other one's more successful. But so I started doing these interiors of our house, our dining room into the kitchen. And often it was before kids, and often I'd be like, John, we're eating in the living room tonight. We're not eating in the dining room, because like this was what was left over. We didn't always clear the table at the end of the night. So this one's probably about 4 foot, maybe by 3 foot or something. And then this started a series of party paintings. And I'm just checking the time. Okay, so I would construct these. And also, as I told you, that my family are all accountants, my birthday's in tax season. When I grew up, I knew April 15th and December 25th, Christmas and tax season. My birthday's March 25th. So it was always kind of a day that everybody's working. You understand we didn't get your presents, or we didn't wrap them, or whatever. And it's kind of like, yes, I understand, but yet, it was a lonely day a lot of times. So this was kind of me thinking about this party, everything's makeshift. It's a party for one TV tray, one chair. And there's a pink rose again too. But, and this is the inside outside. And I showed this, because look how it's slipping off. I would try to measure, and I can never get it right. I didn't trust my eye. And I don't know if any of y'all can relate to that. This, I think, worked well. But trusting your eye is a hard thing to do. And I'm finally getting there. So, okay, talking a lot. Going back, here are some landscapes, a group of landscapes, again, with Mark Carnes. And I'll just kind of quickly go through these. But the assignment was to do a cloudy view and... Oops, hold on. Okay, I guess I forgot the sunny view. Here's a cloudy view. Oh, there's a sunny view. And so again, just going for that feeling, that almost sensation of the day. And then my studio was in the back end of the house, and there was this beautiful alley behind the alley view out my studio window. And I loved it. And I painted, snowy days, clear snowy days, snowy evenings, spring days. And And this is another view out of our backyard. So and then, okay, so we moved to a new house, and here's another party painting. So we're still in West Virginia. We moved to a house infested with bats, and it was hellish. So anyway, and also notice in that one party painting, there's a laundry basket. So things are repeating. And here's the hamburger. Here's the McDonald's cup. There's a blue picture that I was pointing out, a cake for one. So there's just all these thoughts going through, but I set this up in the studio and I actually reworked it. I did it. I worked on it, and then the next year I went back into it because the store was open. I had a figure through it, but I actually changed it all up. So, so at the time as I was doing that, I was also doing these, I used to show, I think as you start off painting, and even now too, but you kind of make your own, it's good to have a deadline. And I used to show at this, it was like a high-end antique bookstore in Berkeley Springs, but I would have shows there. And they were really good to kind of provide a deadline. We'd print postcards and all this stuff. So I did paintings of rural scenes and urban scenes in DC. So this is Berkeley Springs. And by the way, it fell on my palette. There's my yellow ochre that I used to use that I no longer use. But here's a view of Berkeley Springs, which is a really interesting town. And then here's one, I cut off the words, but this is in DC on Sheridan Circle. And I worked on it a number of times, but then the last time I worked on it, this sunbather came out and laid out, and it was like April 3rd. I was like, really? But I snuck him in. I painted him real quick. So, and so this is kind of my answer to, this is Berkeley Springs. And I was excited. I put a line up there that was a pool, and like, can I communicate that with just one stroke? And then even the Century 21, things that you wouldn't think to put in a landscape or the power lines or whatever, just trying not to edit anything out. And then here's one, again, I was in another storefront, like on a porch looking down. And there is a little figure in here actually. And then here's one in Martinsburg. So I would go out with one size, but bring another size panel with me if I needed to extend it, because I didn't always know what I was going to paint. So I had my daughter Elsa, who was born before Frozen in 2007. And I remember, and I had a big painting block when I was pregnant with her. I don't know if anybody's experienced that, but it can be awful and scary. So she was born, and I quickly learned I could not just go out to the landscape, which sounds obvious, but when you're used to just being just you, and then now you have this little one to take care of, you're like, oh yeah, you don't have as much freedom, which is fantastic. I have 3 kids. I love it, but it's just kind of a reality check. So I did this out the window, and I got my neighbor, Mariana, who is hilarious. She smoked like a train. She chain smoked and smoked like a train. And she would say things. She lived next door to us, and she would say things like, Erin, did you all get new blinds in your kitchen? I said, yeah. She goes, now I can't see what you're doing at night. And I was like, okay. She was very nosy, so I kind of captured her when she wasn't looking. But and then here's another one from that time. So then I went back to grad school. I realized, I remember talking to Nikki on the phone, and Nikki said she just got a job at William and Mary. And I was like, I was talking to a lot of my friends from undergrad, and they all had their MFAs, and here I am, nothing wrong with West Virginia, but we just didn't have, I mean, it's gorgeous, but we didn't have a lot of friends. And I had this new baby, and I'm not painting very seriously. And I thought, I wonder if American University would let me come back. And so I contacted them, and it was 7 years later, and they said, excuse me, they said you have to reapply again, but you can reapply, and if you get accepted, you can use that first year. So I reapplied and I got in. And so I was like, what the heck do I do? I'm in this place that is just, there's installation artists, there's performance artists, there's all these things, but there's not many painters. There's like 3 painters, sculptors and things, which it was great for me to be exposed to that, but it was also terrifying. So I decided to go into the still life because I didn't know quite where to go. And I thought, let me go into the still life and let me go into these birthday paintings again. And so I remember setting this up, and I remember the professors and other people were saying, it looks so forced. It looks very forced. And I was thinking, do I move the Starbucks cup to the right, to the left? What do I do so it doesn't look as forced? Then I looked down and I thought, this is what they mean. It's more I mean, like a window, right? But it's not contained on the table. It's it feels more you're in the action. It felt better, and it felt like this is where I need to go. So I continued to do the still life, and hold on. Yeah. For my thesis show, I decided to, not only am I going to do a still life, I'm going to do a huge one, which, I mean, people do bigger paintings. This is like 5 foot by 5 foot. So, but I thought I'm going to do it something as mundane as laundry. Elsa was about 2 at the time, and I took this rug from our living room. I took her Elmo doll, some of her clothes. I took everything from the apartment and brought it into the studio and painted this. And so I was excited about it. I really was. And I felt like it was something, the still life that everything's kind of tumbling out, and hopefully it looks like it's found. It was all set up, but so this was, and it was kind of my, not getting back, but kind of rebelling against, these other, I guess, more grounded in conceptual, theory and stuff, these other pieces of work that were in the show. So, okay, so then let's move along to I guess it's a year after. I was in an apartment that was very boring, not much inspiring interiors. So long story short, I decided, and what kind of happened is I started having pattern as kind of the, it almost became formulaic. It kind of did. I would set down a pattern, a pattern cloth on the ground, and then I would set the objects on top of it. So that became kind of this almost kind of space that, wasn't necessarily referencing, a 1940s Cape Cod house, but it was still a space that I could grab hold on, and it functioned as just a place and to kind of hold these still lifes. And I was there's another party painting, right? And here's the tray, the plastic tray for flowers, flamingo, these things. And I was also going to show this one. I wanted to show too. I was I newly pregnant with Camille, I think my second one. And I remember there were a lot of thoughts. I was on some medicine. I knew I wasn't being able to nurse. And so that was on my mind. And so we had this milk that, it was like sitting on the counter. I was like, let me paint it because, formally I like the warms to the cools and this like glass and the, light going through. But then I was also thinking this kind of speaks to, with the medicine bottle, does it speak to motherhood as well? These are skull rings, and then there's a spider. I won't even bore you with the spider story that I associate with. But and then the straw too. The straw, does it go with the milk? Does the straw actually solve the compositional problem of everything being shifted to the right? So these are just things I'm thinking about. And then the candy corn, it's referencing something natural, but it's not, it's candy, it's sugar, it's not corn. Okay. So we saw that one. So then I had Camille was born, and then 15 months later, Otto was born. And checking the time real quick. So I took a break from painting, and just because kind of the chaos of our life with 3 kids. And I jumped back in, and I did these garbage bag paintings, and part of it was black on black. I wanted to do a black painting, but then other things too. I had these writings that I wanted to include. And I remember painting this, and I remember I wanted the word sad and mother to be in here because it was a story that I wrote as a kid. And then I thought, what kind of shorthand am I going to do for the rest of the text? And so I decided, why not write all the text? And so that's what I did. And that turned into this painting, which I did all this text, and it's all with a paintbrush. And then I did this. And then I also titled it Refuse, because it can mean either refuse, is this childhood story or this feeling refused, or is it refuse, garbage? Is it being put into the garbage bag? Is it be taken out? So anyway, these are just things going through my mind. So now we get a Leonard Anderson. I wish this was my painting, but it wasn't. Leonard Anderson taught my professor, Eve Mansdorf, and prolific, beautiful painter who died a number of years ago. But I remember seeing this painting in undergrad and thinking, what? You can paint a Jiffy popcorn popper? Like, this is like throwaway stuff. And so I've always loved this painting. My answer to that painting was a Tinkerbell balloon painting. I wanted to kind of have a conversation with Leonard Anderson, but have it my own. They probably didn't sell Jiffy popcorn poppers anymore when I did this, but this was my answer. And again, after the party. And so another after the party scene, and this painting was, I feel like a critical painting because all these patterns mean something. So this was a 1972 wedding gift to my parents. It was an old pillowcase that I used to sleep on too. And I had cut it a number of years ago, just halfway. And I thought, darn it, why did I do that? But obviously painting it, you can just push it together. You don't have to paint the cut. And I was like, let me paint the cut. And then I thought, what happens if I just paint the cut? So this started into all the cloth paintings. So I kind of went, so when it kind of lesson I learned too, something that I was so frustrated with, actually was an opening. So I'll go through these pretty quickly. This is a 5 foot by 4 foot, and here's a detail. I did all these dots. This is all mesh fabric, and I did all these dots, and they're different colors. Some have highlights on them. Anyway, it becomes kind of trompe-l'oeil. And then here's a setup of a big red painting I did. You can see the scale, and then also, you know, I'm still painting from life, always painting from life. And here's the big red painting. And also I wanted to see if I could just do a painting with red. So there was that challenge too. I used cadmium red medium, quinacridone red, alizarin crimson, and cat orange, and that was it. I mean, with some other colors. So, but those are all the reds. So now we shift to last year, and I had a show of I turned 46 last year. I'm about to turn 47, and I had a solo show to get ready for in Chicago. There's this alternative space, and I decided what would happen if this, because I've kept journals my whole life. What happens if I almost have this visual memoir that's on the wall? So I did 46 paintings, one for each year. So this is kind of, you can see the scale, but they were all up. And so you walk through the room and they each had titles in terms of like the year and then what significant memory I was thinking about. And so here's another install shot. So it was really cool to see. And my husband, who's so supportive, he's like, I really didn't think you were going to pull this off, but I did. So, and I'll show you something else that I didn't think I was going to pull off. But so here's a close-up of one. This is my Gap shirt from 1992 that I refused to get rid of. And I set it in front of the window. But it was a study in light too, and it's the red checked again. And then I wanted to include this. So I went to a Catholic high school in a little town in Indiana. And our teacher was named Raedeke, and our assignment was to do our interpretation of rapture. So this is part of the interpretation of rapture that I did. Next year, I go to Indiana University. I have William Itter, who roomed with Chuck Close at Yale, and we're doing a study of shifting forms, right? And so I went and I got a check plus on it. So I went from rapture to Joseph Albers. So because it was all based on his theory and color and design and things. So then this is one of the ones I wanted to show too. This is a painting, a little 4x6 painting, but this was the year I met John, and I called him, and I remember being real nervous, and Nikki supported me to call him, and I called him, and his roommate said, I said, well, just tell him Erin called. He goes, well, he know who you are. I said, tell him I'm from his art history class. And so he still had it. And I thought, I have to paint this. And it's also a technical thing, like, can I make this look like a highlighter? So the you know, all the whites and things had to be more violet, because violet and yellow were complementary, and that will kind of emphasize the yellow. So anyway, there's all these thoughts going through. So, okay, now this, I'm getting through this. So this is a beautiful self-portrait I did when I was 21, one of my first ones. And so I think it's important to show. It's important for me to see. And I think it's important for people to see old paintings that you're not necessarily the most proud of, but it's this is one of my first self-portraits. And so, okay, let's move. So I did, and here's another self-portrait. So I've always been doing self-portraits. I took a portrait painting class with an undergrad that was really kind of eye-opening, and that gave me more confidence. But here's one this is right when I moved to DC, so I looked very young. So, but there was still a lot of fear, and I put this in because, not that it's great, but I remember the feeling of painting this, and I held back so much. It was a backlit portrait, and I was so scared to do it. There was so much fear in this painting, and that's what, I don't know, not that you could tell as a viewer, but it's, I just wanted to include it. And I didn't even finish it because I was too scared. Okay, how come this isn't? So, okay, here's another one. I was looking at Anne Gale a lot, for you that know Anne Gale, a little too much, but, and then, okay, here's one that I did. So this is one I did in 2010. And I would have kind of a set palette that I would use in terms of like ivory black, yellow ochre, cad red, like, this kind of Zorn palette or alizarin crimson. And so then I didn't do a self-portrait again until 5 years later. And I thought, what happens if I approach the portrait like I do the still life? And this is what I got. And I was really excited about it. There's just more specificity in it, I feel, and it's just richer. It had richer colors to it. And like the background is almost pure dioxazine violet. So I'm a color nerd for sure. And then this is one I worked on quite a lot. And I started it in COVID. So here's just a series. I'm checking the time again. Okay, here's just a series of self-portraits that I've done over the years. Here's one I had just almost fractured. It was a high sprain to my ankle, so I had to sit down and paint. I remember that. But I was really interested. I don't know, the painting's a little bit garish, or I don't know, not as sensitive as maybe I want, but I like this light coming on the chin. And this is a drawing that my daughter did of me, but I'm sitting in a car. You can't, anyway, it's a drawing she did. And then this is one I did last year, and it's a small one, but I usually don't put earrings in. This was before I got my glasses. So this is one kind of at night. And then these two are the last self-portraits that I've done. This is 22 by 18. I actually entered it into the National Portrait Gallery in London again this year, and it made the second cut. So cross your fingers, it makes the next cut. I'll find out March 4th. But so anyway, I was thinking of texture, sheerness, interior a little bit, and how the light, I mean, this is more, I was thinking about the landscape too, because this light it was from 11 to 1 p.m. in my studio at this certain area of my studio. The light coming through the window is very specific. And so I try to capture that, like you kind of capture certain light and landscape too. And then this one is another one that I did, and here's a detail. And that's 36 by 36. And I did hands. I hadn't done hands in a long time, but I was thinking this Ang portrait at the National Portrait Gallery. I don't have a close-up, but there's a beautiful Ang portrait. It's I'm not good with French and I forget the title, but it has this woman, she has a brooch on, and it looks so, real. And you get up close and the brooch has just a tiny little white triangle. And that's what I did to you can't see, but on the ring. So, and then this is what I'm working on now. So you can see kind of how I started painting. I'm doing an interior, and that might have been the second anyway. So here's this, and this is where it is right now. I still need to work on it, but yeah, that is a lot. So
That's beautiful. What a progression. That's amazing. Give us a moment to like digest some stuff. I have lots of questions later.
Okay, this is kind of a quick question for you and Nikki, but I know there's like a lot of common themes, especially around the idea of like parties and so forth. Do you guys talk a little bit about those ideas? Is that kind of back and forth dialogue between the two of you? And because the subject matter is so prevalent in both of your works, I was just curious if they have a lot of dialogue between the two.
Oh, that's a good question. Nikki, where are you? I see you now. I'm trying to think, like for me, I think my party paintings are more of a mourning, like mourning a loss, where, I mean, not to be like, oh, I need to be celebrated, but as a kid, you want to feel special for that one day. And so, or just, have a little extra, let's get a hamburger, right? Or something. And I think it's a mourning, and also me kind of, yeah, I guess replaying that or something and honoring it. And then also maybe is a physical thing that the viewer can maybe experience as well. There's never a figure in mine. And Nikki, there's always a figure, or usually, and there's never a figure in mine, and that's intentional. But Nikki, I don't know if you
Well, she showed me, she was like, I'm working on this painting, and she showed me, and I'm like, oh my God, please don't think I'm copying you, but I am painting a cake right now, a birthday cake. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And I thought, Oh boy. And it's like paralleled like that somewhat. Since we've known each other, there's been like parallels
Yeah.
when we're making work. Like I didn't know about the roses sort of symbolizing you and how you had that. I didn't know about the vase symbolizing your family, but I do the same kind of thing. Like I didn't know that you were doing that, and I'm like doing that with objects.
Yeah.
Yeah, somehow I think we might have been the same person and split off at some point.
No, I think so too.
I was more like the idea of like fleshing out an idea, like, you know, it's like, oh man, I have these ideas sort of rattling around. Maybe Nikki has a suggestion, or you know, Erin has a suggestion on how to like fix a problem that you're having in the painting, since there are a lot of commonalities between, you know, your upbringings and as artists in terms of their schooling and things like that. So I mean, I could see definitely a huge shift in the reason why it's a fiesta, for instance, or a party. Like they definitely don't feel the same, but like the imagery and how it's painted, I can see a lot of like similar thoughts in terms of color and light, those general things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That wasn't a question, was it?
No, no, but that's good. And Jordan, I think the other thing, Nikki and I do have this conversation. I mean, to this day, I'll text her something. I'll be like, Nikki, what's wrong with this painting? Or does this work? And I think it's good for everybody to have some sort of dialogue with another artist that they can bounce ideas off. But I think Nikki and I, it's kind of funny. Nikki comes from a kind of a blue collar family, and you were the first to go to college and grad school. I come from a pretty white collar family, but there's so much stuff that we connect with. I don't know. I just think I mean, maybe that's not information that I need to necessarily point out, but I think there's things that are very different, but yet there's similar experiences that it's kind of eerie sometimes.
There are comments on how fabulous, and someone mentioned about red, reminding them of the portrait of Vermeer portrait of a lady with a hat. But I also have a question. Oh, and someone asks how come you don't use ochre anymore? Or what, do you have a preferred palette?
Yeah.
And I have a question after you answer these.
Okay. So the palette I use is I only use one earth tone, and that's raw umber. Usually I use it to mix a black with ultramarine blue, or I'll use it to tone a canvas. But there's something about, now I make yellow ochre with cadmium orange and phthalo green, or like a kind of it's like a really potent like yellow ochre, like a yellow ochre on steroids or something. But what I like about these potent colors is you can always bring them down, but it's harder to take an earth tone or something and key it up. And so I would rather it's kind of like having fresh garlic versus a jar of, you know, crushed garlic or whatever, because, you know, with fresh garlic, you can crush it, you can slice it, you can roast it, you can do all these things. And that's what I feel like with, you know, like a cad orange and phthalo green. There's so many varieties and mixtures you can get, but with the yellow ochre, you can only go so far, if that makes sense. But I do joke around about it.
Thank you. I'm curious about how you set up your self-portraits. Are you looking at yourself in a mirror all the time, or do you also pepper it with some photos of yourself? How do you do it?
Yeah, I hold on one second. What do you need, Autumn? No, my son just came in. He had to show me something in sketchbook, which is amazing, Otto. So yeah, with the self-portrait, I usually have a mirror up, and I always paint from life and staring at myself. But actually, the one done for the last two portraits, I did use a couple photographs, but I take them at different angles and different times because I don't want to rely on just one. And so, but just to get where the light falls, because it was such a specific time. And also for the one with the black and the red, I used photos to help me with the hands. But yeah.
And the one that you submitted, that we keep our fingers crossed, and that would be lovely. Is it nighttime outside, or is the window closed? I'm not sure I understood.
It's actually where I painted it. It's that doorway. so I'm kind of like half in the doorway and half not. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's funny. I should have shown some progress shots of it, but it wasn't until the very end that I put in the light that hit the wall. And I thought because I was just going to have it dark, but I was like, no, it needs that sense of place. And does that bring in kind of the interior a little bit? So crossing genres, you know.
Oh, interesting. Very good. Thank you.
Erin, would you mind talking a little bit about kind of the thought process that goes from switching from landscape to still life, interior versus exterior? Like, do you think of them as different altogether, or are there a lot of similarities between how you approach the two worlds or ideas?
I think it's funny because I used to think like self-portraits became like exercises in terms of hold on. I thought someone else was coming. We have 3 kids, they come by, right? When I do self-portraits, they became like exercises that I would do between like a big painting getting done, whether it's a landscape or an interior or something in the past, but then they became almost formulaic. Like, you know, the light was up here. I knew to use purples around the eye. Like it became very formulaic. And that's when the portrait that went to London, that made me really look in a different way, like kind of look because the light was so specific. And I will set and I wanted to look, I wasn't just trying to label like, oh, there's going to be yellows on the forehead and there's going to be, I was really trying to look. And so it was what I do in the landscape and still life. Sometimes I'll set up still lifes where the light is fleeting. So because when I'm talking a lot, when you're in the landscape, it's very immediate, right? And you got to get it down and you got to trust your eye and you got to be economical unless you come back. But still, when you come back, you still have to be all those things. And so I was, yeah, with that portrait definitely that brought in landscape. And then no, I try to kind of that immediacy. I do find when I'm out in the landscape for quite a while and I come back in, it does definitely feed into still lifes. And but now I am thinking more to cross, like bring the genres together. I don't know if that answered. I got
I think it's more like, we talked a little bit about the information that Mark gave you as an instructor, think about warm versus cool and paint light kind of things. Is that still how you think about how you paint the self-portrait or the still life?
Yes. So to answer, let me answer that concisely. When I paint, I look at color and I will say, I have certain list of questions and they're always the same, which the question is it warm? Is it cool? Is it lighter? Is it darker? Is it saturated? Is it neutral? Like, so I ask these questions, does it go towards violet? Is this violet? Does it go through blue or green or red? So yeah, there's a list of questions that pertain to each painting or that applies to every painting. So.
John has a question for you.
Yeah.
1 second, hey, John had raised his voice, his hand, sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
And then Barbara.
Insert myself. So, hey, Erin, I have a million questions, but I'll just ask one. So I was curious about the birthday paintings, and you had mentioned that like things kind of opened up for you when you kind of took things off the table and spread things, on the ground. And I'm wondering, like, if that, so that kind of loosened you up in that way. Did that also loosen you up in terms of color, like taking chances with color?
I'm trying to think when that happened. Went a little bit, but I think the color chances, it happened after having the 3 kids because it became, when I had an infant and a 15-month-old and then a 4-year or 5-year-old, it became your time is so you don't have any. And so it's just, you got to put it down. And there's no, I used to do all this time anticipating, what is this color going to look like? I don't know. Let me think. And now I'm just like, put it down and then judge, like, don't like kind of get rid of that. But I think it's since having kids, it's just cut to the chase, enough with these kind of questions of like, well, when you meet somebody, John, my husband always makes fun of me. He's like, you ask too many questions. I'll ask, how are you doing? But then I'll ask, why did you do this? What made you go into, medical school or whatever, anyway, does that help, John? Okay.
Well, my question was about the yellow ochre. I was intrigued because when I painted, I loved yellow ochre. It could make a wonderful olive green and all kinds of things. So you use just a phthalo green and cadmium orange to make your yellow ochre. And I just want to thank you. This has been such a wonderful trip. I really loved your narrative and thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's funny. I'm like, is anybody interested in this? It's just, I talk a lot. I used to be so shy, and now I'm like, I'm making up for it. But
Good for you. Any more questions, comments, accolades? Wow. Thanks for talking a lot, someone says.
well, no, thanks for taking the time to be here, and yeah, it's been
So
fun.
interesting, wonderful, wonderful narrative. And one Anika has a question.
Yeah.
Oh yes, sorry. First, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. I actually put down my question in the chat, so I thought maybe I can just ask it out loud. Maybe that's fine. So I was wondering, so when it seems like when you do still life painting, you just you think about this setup very much, like you choose your objects very carefully. So I was wondering, how did you do, I mean, how did you think of painting landscape? I mean, did you like change anything in the painting to make it what you wanted, or no, you just looked for the right scene to paint? No, I don't know if it makes.
No, it does. I think I know exactly what you mean. I usually don't edit or shift things around, but sometimes, like in the landscape, I'll find sometimes I'll go to like a garbage can or something, or you don't know, something like kind of overlooked, and I'll kind of adjust my point of view or something. But yeah, I usually think, but with the still life, I do shift things around, but certain things I'll look for color relationships in the still life, and that translates to landscape or certain light or something backlit or evening or morning or does that kind of answer your question? Or the composition, if I want it to look kind of, claustrophobic or if I want it to be open, which can kind of, if I want you in the mix or out. Yeah. I was, I don't, maybe there's more questions. I was going to say one little tidbit if anybody's curious about this, about the last portrait. That I did with the black background and the red. That painting was actually done with no yellow. And even for the shirt, for the background or anything. And like conceptually, I was thinking, and maybe this is too much information, but oh well. But I was thinking when I grew up, I kind of, one of my primary caregivers was very absent. And I was thinking, here are my primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, right? Well, the yellow is absent. So I had to turn to the two secondary colors, orange and phthalo green. And phthalo green is, potent. And I had to somehow tame that. So it's almost become like I'm becoming my own in certain areas, whether it's my own mother or my own, I don't know if that makes sense, but it just was kind of cool how that ended up. And I was kind of like thinking about it. I was like, this is interesting. I've made it through without a primary.
That's fascinating. It's almost like colors have their own personality.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a million assignments you can give students in that just alone. And this is like completely off topic, but do you remember those like children's books where the crayons and the kid, I forget, and they always write letters to the kid? Oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank. Jeremy is the kid, and it's like these the red crayon is writing. Every crayon has its own personality. It was
Okay.
a huge series, but I was just thinking, oh, that makes perfect sense. Like I remember an instructor saying that like, this is kind of bad, but like the red is like the hooker of like, it demands so much attention, but once you get into it, it's like maybe not so much. But they have there's a certain characteristic about color, like they all have personalities. So that's eye-opening.
Yeah, we explain it. This is a silly thing, but I explain it. The primaries is the bullies at the schoolyard. They want the lunch money from the secondaries, right? So the blue will come to the green and say, "Give me all your blue. I want all your blue," and it leaves the green with the yellow, right? It takes all the blue out. Or the red goes to the purple and says, "Give me all your red," and so the purple's left with blue. It's like that, the Albers. I mean, I can even bring one up, but like there's the Albers studies where you put like a purple on a red ground and it looks blue. The purple on a blue ground looks red. So,
Right.
Anyway.
I'm going to combine a couple of questions. Can you tell us a little bit about how you plan a painting, and particularly if you set up the lights and darks first, or you just get started right away?
No, usually what I do, I used to draw things out and try to measure and all this stuff. And then I would get so frustrated because I would measure, and then things wouldn't line up. And I would get so like just down on myself. And then it's like, what do? You just give up and go take a nap. And like now I'm just like, I've learned that kind of get rid of these obstacles, And so I'll like put a vertical and a horizontal, but really my drawing is constructed with color and value. So if I can get the color and the value and the shape right, then the drawing emerges. So that's what, so in this, it's more of a discovery. So I'll put like a vertical and horizontal, and then I just kind of start going with the color. So
Thank you so much. It's very
Huh?
creative. And lots of accolades in the chat. I can send it to you or show it to you later.
Yeah.
That's
Can I ask
wonderful.
one final question though? It's been
Absolutely.
sorry, I have a lot of questions. This beautiful beach that I probably should be exploring, but this is really great. The kind of the thought and desire to go back to AU and get your master's degree. And I remember struggling at IU, getting my master's degree, and I was thinking, well, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Did you have like a reason to pursue that? I have multiple friends who avoided grad school and are happier for it. And I was just wondering what grad school gave to you, and was it worth it in the end? I don't know if that's the right question, but
No, it's a great question. I think, when you have students and stuff, they also ask, should I go into grad school? And I'm kind of, sometimes I think, I mean, if you have millions of dollars, I mean, I guess some programs they do pay for it or whatever. Mine wasn't paid for. And so, sometimes I think, oh, is it worth it? I mean, obviously you can teach. And I think this was back in 2008, 2009. And I was thinking, maybe if I wanted to teach, it would be important. But then also I think for me it was the legitimacy, because with all these CPA certificates, maybe I would have an MFA, so can that somehow give me credit, give me street cred, right? And so, and even to friends and stuff, and where I grew up in Indiana, nobody's really an artist. It's a small town, and it's like, oh, you do that? I thought you'd do something smarter, Erin. And I have had that comment, even from a cousin. But yeah, these days, I think what I got from grad school was more grit. I think because the first critique I had my second year, the professor said, "Why are you here?" And then I said, "I have an 18-month-old," and he goes, "Ew, why would you do that?" And so I was just like, okay, why am I here? So it was a lot of fighting in terms of like, I can't just give up. So yeah.
I relate to that. Thank you so
You'll have to
much.
tell me stories sometimes. So
Oh yeah, I got stories.
yeah.
And this is unrelated as well, but I had 4 years at MICA, and Mark Carnes was one of my 2 instructors. I absolutely love the man. And again, this is just a shout out to anyone who's ever gotten to work with Mark Carnes. He is one of the best there is.
Yeah, completely.
Unrelated, not a question, just a general comment.
I'll agree with you though. I totally agree, Jordan. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Erin and Nikki. This was fabulous. It only fed us for more questions, but we'll probably either write to you or
Please do.
everybody can route them through us and we can send them to you and so on. You just created a lot of interest and a lot of more questions, which is lovely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for participating, and thank you all for coming. This was fantastic, and the recording will be there by Monday, perhaps even sooner.
Maybe not. I'm not sure I can access adding it to the webpage, so sorry.
Oh, no problem. We will, John will post it to the YouTube channel, which you can find by just Googling ACO community.
And in the meantime, you can always go back and rewatch Nicole's amazing talk from 2 weeks ago. That is posted.
Yes, yes. Fantastic.
And the plenary forum before that was also fabulous. So.
Thank you again so much. Join us in a couple of weeks and with Michiko. And in the meantime, have fun and keep painting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow, hopefully, Erin. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Bye-bye. And you have fun, Jordan.
I'll try
to explore the place.
It's too big.
It's great.
All right, bye, everyone.